On today's episode of the DeRaud-Messinger Show, we preview the spring Texas quarterback battle. Longhorns fans, don't forget to like and subscribe for more content. It's greatly appreciated. So to begin, Dylan, yes, we're talking quarterback battle yet again. Year number 2 here. But we're not in the fall camp yet, Dylan. We're in the spring camp. So it's going to be a little bit more of a preview. I still think it's a little too early to decide who's going to be winning this. But what are your early thoughts on this battle so far? I know there's not a ton of intel out there yet about it.
Well, Devon, for me, it's tough, right? Like you've got this brand new toy, Ewers coming over from Ohio State. It hasn't been opened yet. It could be anything. It could be anything. There's a world of possibilities with him. And you have Hudson Card, who obviously had some good flashes. There was times where he was impressive, and you're like, okay, he's making some accurate passes. He's moving the ball down the field. But there were also times where I think the improved offensive line will help. But that season, he looked a little flustered. There's a few games where he had 3 to 4 sacks that he gave up, and obviously got injured too. And Casey Thompson was brought in more. He ultimately lost his job to Casey Thompson because of Thompson's versatility in the running game, his ability to just get out of the pocket. So he was hurt in that aspect. But again, I think there's this hype train with Ewers that he's going to be the savior and all these type of things. But it's like you don't know it yet. You don't know. You have to see how he does. And I know Hudson Card is kind of wearing down on you because you had him for a year and you're like, well, is this what we're gonna get? But I don't think that season was indicative of how he's gonna be in the future. I would just be careful with the whole hype with Quinn Ewers. Yes, he has a strong arm, but you can't just base it off of that. So it'll be interesting to hear in the future with this whole spring camp, see how the coaches feel about him. But it's kind of how I feel at the moment, Devin.
Yeah, and we warn, and you were warning right there, we warn against the savior complex that Longhorns fans seem to have in the front of their brain at all times. It's not one player that's going to save a program. Yes, better play, more consistent play at the quarterback position certainly helps more than maybe a lot of other positions, but as you said, the offensive line last year was waste management container quality. Let's just put it at that to be nice. But this year, obviously, the good recruiting class on that offensive line is going to be coming in. How many of those guys are going to be starting, game one? I don't know. They're freshmen. I don't really want to be seeing true freshmen start out there. I'd rather see them compete and maybe win their job later into the season. But as you said, Card kind of got a bad break last year. But that's the thing that I think is funny is that both of these guys caught semi-bad breaks last season. Before the college season started, Ewers was waiting on the Texas NIL legislation bill, see if he could make money at the high school level. They said no, which, Dylan, that's kind of weird to me. If you're a high schooler that's playing football, I guess you can't make money off of YouTube videos. And that's the number one level. Obviously you can get branding deals and stuff, but you can't do that at Texas. So he decided to go to Ohio State and kind of got forced his hand early and had to leave high school, so that was a bad break for him. By the time he gets on campus, he's already behind on the depth chart. Not too much he can do there. And with Card, as you said, he had his goods and he had his bads, but he really wasn't ever provided the opportunity to fight through all that. Now, I understand at a certain point you got to be focused on winning games, and Casey Thompson provided more of that at the quarterback position. But sometimes, in your first season as a starter, you just got to go through the bads, Dylan. But another interesting comparison here, I got stats. The Cards last season at Texas, this was last year. He played in 7 games, 590 passing yards, 5 touchdowns, and 1 interception. Not flashy, but then again, like a lot of the games he started, he played half of the game because they were still rotating quarterbacks. Then later in the season, Thompson got hurt. Card stepped in for a quarter or two. So, the passing yards and all that aren't going to be super prevalent. But Dylan, here's the stats that I think are kind of interesting. In their high school career, Card practically started or played in about 25 or 26 games at the quarterback position. He passed for 6,408 yards, 80 passing touchdowns, 12 interceptions, and he was a decent runner too, over 1,000 rushing yards and 20 rushing touchdowns. But Ewers, in 25 games, Dylan, you see the similarities there already, passed for 6,445 yards, so just about 37 yards above Card there. 73 passing touchdowns, 8 interceptions. Also was a little bit of a runner, but not as great as a runner. So they had similar stats at high school. They both lost in a championship game. You can't really fault either of them there, Dylan. I'll go on my Devon rant there. All the people saying Klubnik better than Ewers. I like both quarterbacks, but Westlake, Dylan, you can speak to that team. It wasn't this past season's team, but that team was stacked.
I think you got to talk about the it factor, Devin. So it's like I don't know how to completely express it, but there's something when you're watching a quarterback, you can see the difference in them. So watching, like, let's say those three, Cade Klubnik, Quinn Ewers, Hudson Card, the way that Ewers is able to just throw the ball, and Klubnik's ability to just get guys or like extend plays and just find the open guy, those are just like, wow. Like, these guys have that. Hudson Card had those similar moments too, when you'd see the backup, and then the next game he'd come back and he's just whipping the ball around. So what I'm trying to say with that is bringing it to the college level again. When you're watching Hudson Card, when you're watching Casey Thompson, neither of them had moments where you're like, all right, are these guys winning quarterbacks? Now, Hudson Card's sample size isn't large enough, so that's what we're kind of talking about. It's like, it's not really fair to him to say, like, all right, send him to the transfer portal. You don't need him anymore. Quinn Ewers is it. When you can really only base Hudson Card off like one or two games. So we'll see. There was no parts during those games where it was like, okay, he's the reason they're winning this game. Like, he is gonna be able to extend plays, make some key third and long passes to extend drives. So that's what I'm gonna be looking for, and I think that's when people think of Ewers, that's kind of what they're thinking about, with just like his whole potential.
Yeah, and that's, I guess, something that we're going to have to watch at that spring game. Like you said, Card, we know he's got the potential. We saw him at Lake Travis. I'd say the number one trait I saw from him at Lake Travis was probably leadership ability. He's doing the little things. I think I've talked about it before. After he played Westlake and beat them at home, and big upset for them, even though Lake Travis is a powerhouse in and of itself. All the teammates were already in the locker room, but he was still on the field passing, a little toy football with some Lake Travis, I'm going to assume elementary schooler, and that just shows his character. But on the field, I think his accuracy was what stood out, Dylan. I remember he had a touchdown pass to Kyle Eves right in front of you in the end zone in that game. It was just a beautiful dot. But yet again, he won games at the high school level. He's got the ability. And I know Texas fans kind of saw the deer in the headlights when he was running the ball, at least. And there was passing moments like that too against Arkansas, namely. But you could see the deer in the headlights. But the deer in the headlights look for Card, in my opinion, isn't necessarily new. He kind of had that at Lake Travis as well. But that's kind of what made him special, I think, Dylan, is especially when he was running. I think we talked about this when covering his games, is he's out there and he's, looking like the deer going left and right and just kind of bouncing around. But that's kind of what helped in his, I guess, high school progression at the time, is he went from a runner to being a passer. But at the college level, like we said, you got to work on that. You got to be as calm as possible. Obviously, if you're out of the pocket, you can't be hesitating like that. You're either going to have to tuck it and run, or you're going to have to throw it away and live for the next play. So that's something I'm looking at for Card. And Ewers, as you said, he's got the big play element. It doesn't always work out for him, but usually it does. Like we said, Westlake, the championship game, unfortunately, was his last at the high school level. Didn't turn out the way he wanted to. He had, I believe, 2 interceptions in that game, and I think they were both by Michael Taff, who made incredible plays. If you remember, Dylan, one was a one-handed interception that I believe was on Sports Center. So you can't really fault him for that, especially when he is the driving force of that Carroll team, and Westlake's defense was already going to be tough to stop. And he, give Ewers credit, he pushed Westlake for a half, and that was really the only time they had been pushed that whole season, I believe. Or maybe, I think the game before, North Shore gave them a hard time. But other than that, very impressive. But what I'm looking for is not on the field stuff, Dylan. If you take stuff away from a spring game, you got to check yourself, okay? I want to see the leadership qualities. That's another thing I wrote down, is that both are quiet leaders. Card isn't a big talker. I mean, behind the scenes, he gets along with everybody just fine, I assume, from the stuff you see on social media, but he's not going to be someone that is super outspoken. I know he's talked about working on that, which obviously is great to see from the quarterback position, but Ewers is kind of the same way. He's not a big talker in and of itself. I know he's got the stars and number one player in the 2022 recruiting class and then number one player in the 2021 recruiting class. And I'm sure he's got his share of confidence, no doubt in that, but he's more of a behind-the-scenes guy, too, who gels with people. So any word on leadership there, Dylan?
Well, no, like again, like the QB doesn't have to be that, Devin. I think that's just part of the stereotype of being the quarterback. You're the leader of the offense, which obviously you are on the field, but that stereotype of being it also in the locker room, that doesn't have to be the case. You could see that out of your left tackle. You could see that out of your center. Like, look for the offensive linemen that are coming up in this class. Like, if they can be those rah-rah guys, that's really all you need. Maybe Xavier Worthy, a wide receiver, like those type of guys that anybody can take over those roles. Guys on defense too. So I wouldn't be too worried about those. There's leadership actions. They need to be shown just on the field and like in their actions again. Like, okay, I'm gonna throw a name in there, Kyler Murray. All right, against the Rams in the playoffs, you got your head down. Like, you can't have those moments. You can't have those moments on the bench where it's just like you're, as the quarterback, people are going to be looking at you. So if you're keeping your head high, that's the type of leadership you're looking for. If you're slumped down on the bench or blaming other people, like that's when it's going to get in the way. That's when you should be nervous about the guys you have on your field, Devin. But I wouldn't read too much into the, rah-rah quarterback narrative.
No, I agree. I don't think you have to be a rah-rah quarterback, but if you are a quiet quarterback, you got to, I guess, put the effort in the spots that count. You don't always have to be the loud, outspoken coach, of a player. If you look at the great coaches, a lot of them are more quiet guys that choose their spots of when to speak up. Now, I don't question their leadership abilities. Obviously, both guys were able to get their teams pretty far in high school and in college. That's where the leadership is yet to be seen. Obviously, not a lot of game tape, if you will, on that category. But yes, as you said, if the team's struggling, I want to see the quarterback out there. You don't have to be doing jumping jacks and yelling rap at people, but you want to be, talking to your O-line, help them out a little bit. If they're having a tough play, say they've got it. But, that's just something to see. They're both young quarterbacks, not Sam Ehlinger in terms of experience at the college level. And obviously Ehlinger was known as the field general. So, and I believe Card and Ewers are both friends with Ehlinger. So I'm curious to see what tips and tricks they're trying to get from them. But this video, guys, was a little bit of a preview of what to expect in that spring ball. We've seen both of these guys at the high school level. So we're glad to be sharing a little bit about what we thought about them at high school level. Ewers has a spectacular arm, as Dylan mentioned. He's got the arm strength and the accuracy. A lot of people kind of downplay his arm strength, which is kind of surprising to me because he's been the quarterback, Dylan, that I have the hardest time keeping up with the ball when I'm filming these games because it is fast. So don't necessarily listen to those critics. But, Card, yet again, he's also got the arm talent too. So what do you guys think about this Card versus Ewers quarterback battle? It's still too early to really say anything definitive or make any predictions. We'll have to save those if we do that later. And probably don't expect a result until the fall, at least externally. Sark might know early, but yet again, I'm sure he'll keep it quiet like a good coach does. Now, what do you guys think? Let us know down below. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and have a great rest of your day.